I watched my children walk out of that courtroom with their heads down, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no vindication, just the hollow weight of knowing that the people I raised, the people I would have died for, had looked me in the eyes and systematically destroyed everything I'd built over 50 years. They made $400,000 off my fear, off my trust, off the simple fact that I loved them enough to believe every word they said. I'm Patricia, and I'm 75 years old. I'm speaking to you today from my home in Greenwich, Connecticut, because I need you to know that this can happen to anyone. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how careful you've been, or how much you think you know your own children. When the people you trust most in the world decide to exploit you, they know exactly which buttons to push. So let me ask you, where are you watching this from? Are you sitting in your living room right now, maybe thinking about your own investments, your own family? Drop a comment and let me know. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just my story. It's a warning. It was March 2023 when everything started to fall apart. I remember the exact date because it was my granddaughter Emma's birthday, and I'd been planning to take her shopping for a gift. But instead, I got a phone call that would change everything. "Mom, we need to talk. Can we come over tonight?" It was my son, Marcus. His voice had that serious tone that immediately made my stomach drop. You know that tone, the one that means something's wrong, something's really wrong. And when he said we, I knew he meant his sister too. Rebecca. My 2 children, my whole world. They showed up at 7 o'clock that evening, both of them dressed like they'd come from work. Marcus in his suit, Rebecca in her blazer. They sat down at my kitchen table, the same table where I'd helped them with homework, where we'd celebrated birthdays and holidays, where we'd laughed and cried through every milestone of their lives. Marcus pulled out his laptop without even accepting the coffee I'd offered. "Mom, we need to talk about your investments," he said. "We're really worried." I should tell you, I'd done well for myself. My husband Thomas passed away 12 years ago and he left me comfortable. But I'd also been smart with money my whole life. I worked as a school administrator for 33 years, and I'd been investing since I was 25. By the time I retired, I had a portfolio worth about $1.8 million. Not wealthy by Greenwich standards, but enough to live comfortably and leave something for my kids. Marcus and Rebecca had always been interested in my investments. Marcus worked in finance, something with hedge funds that I never fully understood. Rebecca was a real estate attorney. They were successful, educated, living in nice houses with their families. I was proud of them. So when Marcus opened up a series of charts on his laptop that night, charts showing declining market trends and economic forecasts, I paid attention. I trusted him. He was my son. He worked in finance. God, I was such a fool. "The market's heading for a major correction, Mom," Marcus said, turning the laptop screen toward me. "We're talking about something potentially bigger than 2008. The signs are all there." Rebecca leaned forward, her hand on mine. That should have been my first warning. Rebecca wasn't usually physically affectionate, but I was so focused on the fear creeping up my spine that I missed it. "We don't want you to lose everything you and Dad worked for," she said softly. "We've been watching your portfolio and you're heavily exposed in exactly the sectors that are going to crash hardest." I looked at those charts, those red lines diving downward in Marcus's projections. I'd been through market downturns before, the dot-com bubble, the 2008 crisis. I knew that markets recovered, but I was 75 now, not 50. I didn't have decades to wait for recovery. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. "Liquidate," Marcus said. "Not everything, but the high-risk positions. We're talking about probably 70% of your portfolio. Move it into cash and bonds until the correction happens, then reinvest at the bottom." "That's a lot to liquidate," I said slowly. "Won't I lose money on the taxes?" "You'll lose a lot more if you stay in," Rebecca said. "Mom, we wouldn't be here if we weren't genuinely concerned. Marcus has been modeling this for months. His firm is preparing for it. This is real. Here's what you need to understand about financial exploitation of elderly people. It's not always obvious. It's not some stranger calling you claiming to be the IRS. Sometimes it's your own children sitting in your kitchen, using their expertise and your love for them as weapons. They spent 3 hours with me that night. Marcus showed me analysis after analysis. Rebecca talked about fiduciary responsibility and protecting my future. They both kept saying how worried they were, how they'd been losing sleep thinking about me losing everything. "What about your investments?" I finally asked Marcus. "If this is so certain, what are you doing?" "I'm in a different position," he said smoothly. "I'm younger. I can ride it out. Plus, my portfolio is structured differently. I've got protections you don't have." That should have been warning number 2, but I was tired, overwhelmed, and scared. They were saying all the things that made my worst fears feel real. "I need to think about it," I said. "Of course," Rebecca said. "But Mom, don't wait too long. These things happen fast. By the time everyone realizes it's happening, it's too late to protect yourself." They left around 10 that night. I didn't sleep. I lay in bed looking at the ceiling, thinking about everything Thomas and I had built, thinking about losing it all, thinking about becoming a burden on my children, instead of leaving them something. At 2 in the morning, I got up and looked at my investment accounts on my computer. I'd been so proud of that portfolio, every stock chosen carefully, diversified, built over decades, blue-chip companies, solid dividends, the kind of boring, reliable investments that had grown steadily year after year, and I thought about losing it all. Marcus called me the next morning at 7:30. I was making coffee, my eyes gritty from no sleep. "Mom, did you think about what we discussed?" "I did," I said. "I'm still not sure. The Dow dropped 400 points yesterday afternoon," he interrupted. "Mom, it's starting. You need to act now." Fear. That's what they were weaponizing. Pure, primal fear of losing everything. "What exactly should I do?" I asked, and I hated how small my voice sounded. "I can help you," Marcus said. "I can make the calls to your broker. We can do this today, protect your assets before it's too late. Rebecca and I will help you move everything to safe positions." Today seems so fast. "Mom." His voice was firm, almost sharp. "You taught us not to procrastinate when something important needs to be done. This is important. This is your life savings. Let us help you." So I did. God help me, I did. I gave Marcus my broker's information. He conference called with my financial advisor, Stan, who I'd worked with for 15 years. Marcus presented his analysis, his charts, his projections. He sounded so confident, so professional. Stan raised some concerns about liquidating so much at once, about tax implications and the long-term view. "Stan, I appreciate your conservatism," Marcus said, "but we're not talking about normal market fluctuations here. My mother is 75. She can't afford to lose 30 or 40% of her portfolio. We're talking about protecting her ability to live independently." That phrase, "live independently," hit me like a punch. The thought of losing my home, of having to move in with one of them, of being dependent, that was my nightmare. Stan eventually agreed, with some reluctance, but he agreed. We set up the sell orders. 70% of my portfolio, liquidated over the next 3 days to avoid triggering circuit breakers or raising red flags. I watched my accounts drain. Stock after stock sold. Microsoft, Apple, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, all the companies that had paid me dividends for decades, gone, moved into cash and short-term treasury bonds, just like Marcus recommended. The total came to about $1.3 million in liquidated assets. The remainder, roughly $500,000, stayed in longer-term bonds and a few stocks that Marcus said were defensively positioned. I remember sitting at my computer on that third day, watching the final transactions complete. My hands were shaking. I'd just dismantled 50 years of careful investing in 72 hours, but I trusted my children. They were trying to protect me. Rebecca came over that evening with wine and takeout. "You did the right thing, Mom," she said, hugging me. "I know it feels scary, but you're safe now. When the crash happens, you'll be so glad you listened." "When do you think it'll happen?" I asked. She shrugged. "Could be weeks, could be months, but it's coming. Marcus is sure of it." I nodded, trying to feel relieved instead of terrified. That was April 2023. I'd sold everything. I was safe in cash and bonds, and the market kept going up. By May, the Dow had gained another 600 points. My former holdings, the stocks I'd just sold, were climbing steadily. Every day I checked the market, and every day I felt a little sicker. I called Marcus. "The market's going up," I said. Should we think about getting back in?" "No, Mom. This is the bubble before the burst. This is exactly what we expected. The higher it goes now, the harder it's going to fall. You need to be patient." "But I'm losing money every day by being out." "You're not losing money. You're preserving capital. There's a difference. Trust me, please." "I know this is hard, but you have to trust the analysis." So I waited. June came. July. The market kept climbing. My portfolio sat in cash and bonds, earning essentially nothing while inflation ate away at its value. I started having trouble sleeping. I'd wake up at 3 in the morning, my heart pounding, thinking about all the gains I was missing. But every time I called Marcus or Rebecca, they reassured me. "Be patient. The crash is coming. You'll be able to buy back in at the bottom." By August, I'd lost nearly $200,000 in opportunity cost. That's what it's called, when the money you're not investing is growing slower than the money you could have kept invested. $200,000 gone, because I was sitting in cash waiting for a crash that never came. That's when I started to suspect something was wrong. I called my friend Janet, who I'd known since our children were in elementary school together. Janet had been a stockbroker before she retired. I asked her to look at the analysis Marcus had shown me. We met for lunch at our usual place, a little cafe downtown. I brought printouts of everything Marcus had given me, all those charts and projections. Janet studied them for a long time, her reading glasses perched on her nose. Finally, she looked up at me. "Patricia," she said carefully, "I don't want to upset you, but where did Marcus get this analysis?" "He said it was from his firm. He's been modeling it for months." "The methodology here is sound enough," she said, "but the conclusions are aggressive, very aggressive. Yes, there were some concerning economic indicators in March, but nothing that would justify liquidating 70% of a portfolio, especially not a well-diversified portfolio like yours was." My coffee had gone cold. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that this analysis," she tapped the papers, "is designed to frighten you. Look at these projections. They're worst-case scenarios presented as certainties. And Patricia, the market hasn't crashed. It's gone up 15% since March. If Marcus really believed this analysis, he'd have liquidated his own portfolio too. He said he was in a different position. Did he show you his portfolio?" No, he hadn't. Janet reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm not saying Marcus deliberately misled you. Maybe he genuinely believed there would be a correction. But honey, you need to check something for me. You need to find out if Marcus and Rebecca liquidated their own investments." I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't believe it. These were my children. But that night, I did something I'd never done before. I looked up Rebecca's real estate transactions, their public record in Connecticut, and there it was. A second property purchased in April 2023, right after I'd liquidated my portfolio. An investment property worth $700,000. Where did she get that money? I felt sick, but I needed more evidence. I needed to be absolutely sure before I accused my own children of something so monstrous. I called Stan, my financial advisor. "Stan, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. When Marcus called you in March, did he seem surprised by the sell orders?" There was a long pause. "Mrs. Patterson, I'm not comfortable." "Stan, please, this is important." Another pause. Then, "He wasn't surprised. Actually, he'd called me a week before you did, asking about the process for large liquidations. what documentation would be needed, how long the transactions would take. The room spun. Before our family meeting? Yes, ma'am. And you didn't think that was strange? I thought he was asking on behalf of a client. Marcus works in finance. I didn't realize he was planning to have you liquidate until he called with you on the line. I hung up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the phone. Marcus had planned it. He'd planned the whole thing before that dinner at my kitchen table, before showing me those charts, before making me afraid. But I still needed proof of what they'd done with my stocks. I drove to Marcus's house the next day, Saturday morning. I didn't call first. His wife Sarah answered the door, surprised to see me. "Patricia, Marcus didn't say you were coming." "I need to talk to him," I said. "It's important." Marcus came down the stairs in casual clothes, coffee mug in hand. For just a second, I saw something flicker across his face. Wariness. Maybe even guilt. "Mom, what's wrong?" "I need to see your portfolio," I said. "I need to see what you're invested in." "What? Why?" "Because the market hasn't crashed, Marcus. It's been 5 months and the market hasn't crashed. And I've lost $200,000 sitting in cash while my old stocks keep going up." "Mom, we talked about this. These things take time." "Show me your portfolio," I said. "If you were so sure about this crash, if you were really protecting me, show me that you sold too." The silence stretched between us. Sarah quietly excused herself, taking their kids to another room. "I can't show you my personal investments," Marcus finally said. "That's private. I'm your mother. I gave you access to every detail of my finances. I trusted you completely. If you have nothing to hide, show me. No." That one word, delivered cold, flat, final, told me everything I needed to know, but I still didn't know the worst of it. Not yet. I hired a private investigator. I know that sounds dramatic, but I needed to know the truth. Her name was Linda Chen, and she came highly recommended by Janet's lawyer. "What exactly are you looking for?" Linda asked at our first meeting. "My children convinced me to sell my stocks in March. I think they may have bought the same stocks. I need proof." Linda didn't even blink. "Elder financial exploitation cases are more common than you'd think. Give me 3 weeks." It took her 2. I was sitting in my living room when she called. "Mrs. Patterson, you need to sit down for this." "I'm already sitting." "Then hold on tight. Your son Marcus and daughter Rebecca established a joint investment account on March 15th, 2023, 3 days before your family meeting. They funded it with $200,000 each, $400,000 total." My mouth went dry. "On April 3rd, 4th, and 5th, the exact same days you were liquidating, they purchased stocks through that account. I have the transaction records. Mrs. Patterson, they bought the exact same stocks you sold, Microsoft, Apple, Johnson & Johnson, Procter & Gamble, almost your entire portfolio duplicated." I couldn't speak. "As of this morning, that joint account is worth approximately $800,000. They've made $400,000 in profit from your stocks, the stocks they convinced you to sell. I want you to imagine something for me. Imagine the 2 people you loved most in the world, the 2 people you sacrificed for, worked for, raised with every ounce of love you had. Imagine discovering they'd systematically manipulated you, lied to you, stolen from you. Not because they needed the money, not because they were desperate, but because they wanted more, because they saw an opportunity to profit from your fear and your trust. That's what I felt in that moment. Not anger yet, just a vast echoing emptiness where my trust used to be. "There's more," Linda said. "I tracked their communications. They have a text thread between them starting back in February. They discussed your portfolio. Marcus provided Rebecca with the analysis he planned to show you, and they coordinated the timing. There's one text from Marcus that says, 'Mom will listen if we both push the fear angle. She's always been risk-averse.' If you're watching this and you've been with me this far, I want to ask you something. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel, share this video. because what happened to me is happening to thousands of elderly people right now. And the more people who know about these tactics, the more we can protect each other. What do I do now? I asked Linda. You talk to a lawyer, she said. This is textbook elder financial exploitation. You have a case. They're my children, I whispered. I know, Linda said softly. I'm sorry. But they stopped acting like your children the moment they decided to steal from you. That night, I looked through old photo albums. Marcus and Rebecca as babies, first days of school, graduations, weddings, all those moments where I'd been so proud, so full of love for them. And I made my decision. I hired a lawyer named Thomas Brennan. The irony of the same first name as my late husband wasn't lost on me. Thomas specialized in elder law and financial abuse cases. This is one of the clearest cases I've seen, he said after reviewing Linda's findings. They planned it, executed it, and profited substantially. The text messages alone are damning. But I need to be honest with you, Patricia. This is going to get ugly. Family cases always do. I don't care, I said. What they did was wrong. Agreed. Here's what we're looking at. Connecticut has strong elder exploitation laws. We can sue for the return of their profits, plus damages, plus legal fees. We can also potentially pursue criminal charges, though that's harder to prove without direct evidence of intent to defraud. I want them to give back every penny they made, I said. That's the goal. But first, we need to confront them formally. Let them know we have evidence and give them a chance to settle before we file suit. Sometimes the threat of public exposure is enough. It wasn't. Thomas sent a formal letter to both Marcus and Rebecca on September 15, 2023. It outlined everything we knew, included copies of the transaction records Linda had obtained, and demanded they return the $400,000 in profits, plus an additional $200,000 to cover my opportunity losses. Marcus called me that evening. I'd been expecting it. Mom, what the hell is this? His voice was sharp, angry. You hired an investigator to spy on us? You're threatening to sue your own children? Did you buy my stocks? I asked calmly. Silence. Did you, Marcus? Yes or no? It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You convinced me to sell my stocks by lying about a market crash. Then you bought those same stocks. You made $400,000 while I lost everything. Did you or didn't you do that? We didn't make you do anything, he said, his voice cold now. You made your own investment decisions. We gave you advice. What we did with our own money is none of your business. You planned it, I said. You discussed it in text messages before you ever came to my house. You used your expertise and my fear to manipulate me. You can't prove intent, Marcus said, and you're never going to see a penny from us. If you want to destroy this family over money, that's your choice. But we're not settling. He hung up. Rebecca's response came via her lawyer. Of course, she'd immediately lawyer up. A formal letter denying any wrongdoing, calling my accusations baseless and motivated by cognitive decline. That last phrase, cognitive decline, made me see red. They weren't just thieves. They were going to try to claim I was senile, that I didn't understand what had happened, that I was making false accusations because of dementia. They're going to fight this, Thomas said, and they're going to get nasty. Are you prepared for that? I'm 75 years old, I said. I buried a husband I loved. I survived cancer. I raised 2 children who I thought were good people. I can handle whatever they throw at me. We filed suit on October 1st, 2023. The lawsuit became public record immediately. By that afternoon, both Marcus and Rebecca had blocked my phone number. By the next morning, I'd been uninvited to my granddaughter Emma's birthday party. That hurt more than I expected. Emma was 11. She had nothing to do with this. But Rebecca sent a text, before blocking me, that said, I'm not exposing my daughter to someone making false accusations against her family. You've made your choice. Janet came over that evening and found me crying at my kitchen table. Let it out, she said, putting her arms around me. Let it all out. They took everything, I sobbed. Not just the money, my grandchildren, my family, everything. No, Janet said firmly. They took that. You didn't. They made these choices. They did this. You're just refusing to let them get away with it. The discovery phase of the lawsuit took 3 months. That's the period where both sides have to turn over evidence, sit for depositions, answer questions under oath. Thomas subpoenaed their bank records, their investment accounts, their communications. Marcus and Rebecca's lawyers fought every step of the way. They filed motion after motion trying to get the case dismissed, claiming I had no standing, that there was no evidence of exploitation, that their investment decisions were unrelated to my own. But we had the text messages. We had the timeline. We had the transaction records showing they'd bought my exact portfolio within days of my sale. The depositions were the worst. I had to sit in a conference room while Rebecca's lawyer questioned me for 6 hours, trying to make me seem confused, forgetful, incompetent. He asked me to recall specific dates and conversations from months ago, then acted skeptical when I couldn't remember exact words. Mrs. Patterson, isn't it true that you frequently forget appointments? I'm 75, not 90, I said. I use a calendar like everyone else. But you have forgotten appointments, haven't you? Once or twice in the past year. That's not dementia, that's being human. And you've asked your children to help you with technology issues? Yes, because they grew up with computers and I didn't. That doesn't mean I'm incompetent to manage my finances. But I could see what they were doing. They were building a narrative that I was a confused elderly woman who'd made bad investment decisions and was now blaming her children. Then came Marcus's deposition. Thomas questioned him for 8 hours. I wasn't allowed to be in the room, conflict of interest, but Thomas told me afterward that Marcus had cracked. He tried to maintain that everything was legitimate, Thomas said. But when I showed him his text messages, when I asked him why he'd researched liquidation procedures before your family meeting, when I asked him why he didn't disclose his own purchases to you, he got defensive, angry, started saying things like, I had a right to invest however I wanted and she should have been smarter. That'll hurt him in court, Thomas said with satisfaction. Rebecca's deposition was smoother, she's a lawyer herself, but she couldn't explain away the timeline. She couldn't explain why she'd bought an investment property immediately after my liquidation. She couldn't explain the text messages. We had them. We just had to get to trial. The trial started in March 2024, exactly 1 year after they'd convinced me to sell. The courtroom was cold and impersonal, nothing like the TV dramas that make legal proceedings look exciting. It was mostly just exhausting. Thomas presented our case methodically. He walked the jury through my investment history, showed them how carefully I'd built my portfolio over 50 years. He brought in Stan, my financial advisor, who testified that the liquidation was unusual and that Marcus had researched the process beforehand. He presented Linda Chen's investigation findings. He showed the text messages between Marcus and Rebecca, blown up on a screen so everyone could see Marcus's words. Mom will listen if we both push the fear angle. Then he showed the transaction records, my sales on April 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Their purchases on the exact same days, the same stocks, the same quantities, proportionally scaled to their investment amount. This wasn't coincidence, Thomas told the jury in his opening statement. This was a calculated scheme to exploit an elderly woman's fear and trust. They weaponized their expertise and her love for them to steal her wealth. Marcus and Rebecca's lawyers argued that there was no theft, no exploitation. They maintained that Marcus had given me good faith advice, that they genuinely believed a market correction was coming, and that their personal investment decisions were unrelated to mine. Mrs. Patterson made her own choices, their lawyer argued. She's an educated woman who had her own financial advisor. She could have said no. The fact that she later regretted her decision doesn't mean she was exploited. They put Marcus on the stand. He testified that he'd been trying to protect me, that he'd done research suggesting a market downturn, that he'd never meant for me to be harmed. Then why did you buy the stocks you convinced your mother to sell? Thomas asked during cross-examination. Because my risk tolerance is different, Marcus said. I'm younger. I could afford to ride out volatility. But you told your mother that these stocks were going to crash. You said the market was heading for something worse than 2008. If you really believed that, why would you buy them? Marcus hesitated. My timeline was different. I thought there might be a short-term opportunity. So you lied to your mother about the timeline? You made her think the crash was imminent, but you knew it wasn't? I didn't lie. You manipulated her into selling so you could buy low, didn't you? You created your own buying opportunity using your mother's fear. No. But the damage was done. The jury could see it. Everyone could see it. Rebecca tried to distance herself from Marcus's investment advice. I was just supporting my brother's analysis, she testified. I'm not a financial expert. But you are a lawyer, Thomas said. You understand fiduciary duty. You understand exploitation. And you participated in a scheme to convince your mother to liquidate her portfolio so you and your brother could profit, didn't you? No, we were trying to help her. Help her lose $200,000 while you made $400,000. That's an interesting definition of help. The trial lasted 8 days. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When the jury foreman stood up to read the verdict, I thought my heart might stop. On the count of elder financial exploitation, we find in favor of the plaintiff, Patricia Anderson. I closed my eyes. Relief washed over me so powerfully I thought I might collapse. The jury awarded me the full $400,000 in profits that Marcus and Rebecca had made, plus an additional $300,000 in damages, including my opportunity losses and emotional distress, plus legal fees. The total judgment was over $800,000. But here's what mattered more than the money. The jury believed me. They saw through Marcus and Rebecca's manipulation. They understood what had been done to me. The judge added something I hadn't expected. When she delivered the judgment, she said, "This case represents a particularly egregious form of elder abuse, the exploitation of parental trust by adult children who should be protectors, not predators. I'm ordering both defendants to attend financial ethics training, and I'm placing a notation in the state registry for elder abuse, which will be available to potential employers and licensing boards." Marcus's face went white. For someone working in finance, that notation could be career-ending. They filed an appeal immediately. It was denied 3 months later. The judgment stood. I haven't spoken to Marcus or Rebecca since the trial ended. They've made no attempt to contact me, and I've made none to contact them. My grandchildren, Emma and her younger brother and Marcus's 2 kids, are teenagers now. Maybe someday they'll seek me out to hear my side of the story. Maybe they won't. That's not in my control. What I can control is this: making sure other people know what happened, making sure other elderly parents understand that financial exploitation can come from the people you trust most. I got my money back, most of it anyway. After legal fees and taxes and the time lost, I'm not quite where I was before, but I'm secure. I'm independent. I'm living in my own home on my own terms. More importantly, I can look at myself in the mirror. I stood up for myself. I refused to be victimized. I fought back, even though it meant losing my children, even though it meant destroying the family I'd built, even though everyone told me to just let it go. And I won. If there's a lesson in this, it's not complicated. Trust is earned, not owed, not even by your children, especially not when money is involved. Get everything in writing. Ask questions. Don't let anyone pressure you into financial decisions based on fear. And if someone exploits you, even if it's family, fight back. You deserve justice. You deserve respect. You deserve to grow old with dignity. I'm Patricia Anderson. I'm 75 years old. I'm from Greenwich, Connecticut. And I'm not a victim anymore. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for staying until the end. Remember, where are you watching from? Drop a comment below. Share this if you know someone who needs to hear it. The truth matters. Justice matters. And sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys win.